All right, I'll start again. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the third episode of the Trackwalk RC podcast. This is our first episode with a guest, so pretty special occasion for us. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and hopefully we have some exciting content here for you. With us tonight is NCT Director Brian Phillips, looking to hopefully give us some insight on the NCTs this year. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Doing a lot better now. So should be in good shape. So Pasco's coming up, right? You know, about a week and a half away. And I'm gonna put you on the spot early. What is something that you think we should be looking forward to with the NCT? Like, what are you starting off with? What is the impression you're hoping to make here?
To be honest with you, the main impression of round one, I just want people to have fun again.
Amen.
Yes. And when I took this over last year, every message I got was people weren't having fun. And so I've been watching every race, including the barn that I was just at, and in which we can talk about it later, and had a blast there. Different mentalities, and the fun factor seemed to go away last year, and for a little while it seemed like it was back near the end of the year. But the first race of last year, for whatever reason, and there's no finger pointing or anything towards any of the multiples that went wrong, it was too long of a day, and it took too long, and people didn't have fun, and that's going to be my goal, is to make sure that we have a blast and have a good time.
I still had fun. I had fun. It was a long day, but and it was cold at night, cold and windy, which if it was at the end of the season like it used to be, probably wouldn't have been an issue. But since we've moved it to the beginning of the season, that has changed, and the weather's a little different. It's not quite as nice. But I had fun. I'm having a blast running the NCTs, and every round is just fun. And I think maybe that's a goal I've set for myself, is just to have fun. And if I'm not having fun, I just don't go. So, I've only been running the NCTs for the last couple of years now, so I don't know what it was like prior to that. But I'm having fun. I have a blast running the 8-scale cars. The crowd is, the racers are great. We always have a great time, especially in 40 plus, which we'll probably get into a little bit later. But yeah, for me, 8-scale is just fun all the way around. Doesn't matter the results. I really don't care.
Well, that was the thing, right? That's what it was all really supposed to be in the first place, was just fun. Yes, it was the series where it's supposed to be this kind of collection of the fastest racers in the Northwest, but at the same, there's a real community feel to the NCTs. I mentioned that in a video a couple of years ago, kind of a hype video that was put together, and that was the big thing that I always touched on, is like, I haven't been racing all that long, but I've traveled around a decent bit, and that was the biggest thing, is that the NCT was the only place where I felt that sense of community. So why shouldn't it be fun? And that should be the focus, and that's kind of that's a refreshing answer to hear from you, Brian. And I think I think a lot of differing opinions as far as what's going on and why, but I think that's everyone can agree on one thing, is like that's the universal goal. So that's just kind of what we want to. I don't want to say get back to, because I didn't race it last year, but I don't know if it ever stopped being fun. But maybe that should be the focal point again.
Yeah, it's always been fun for me, but I make it a point to make it fun. It's a weekend away. It's hanging out with all your friends. It's there might be some beverages consumed.
I would hope so.
Brian enjoys that side of it too. But
well, for me, I grew up in other forms of motorsports, and it's the camaraderie part, or the family part that you talked about, is 100%, and that is 100% true, and especially in RC. And it looked like last time there was, the last year at the start, there's some infighting within the family members, but they were still family. And let's just, like I said, I know it's a simple goal, it might not be the technical answer you're looking for, but man, let's just have fun. Let's go out and have a blast, and let's eliminate some of the negativities and have a good time.
You talk about some of the infighting within the family and stuff, and I honestly didn't see it. I know there was some incidents between certain racers and this and that, but that happens at every race all the time. So the fighting within the family, if there was any, was kept behind closed doors a lot of the time. So there was no detraction from the series for any of that, if it was even going on. I don't know. I didn't pay much attention to it. So
easy.
It was awesome. Every year I've run the NCT, the last 2 years has been just so much fun, and I can't wait for it. It's the highlight of my season. I love racing the NCTs. It's what I live for. Going to big races like the Reedy race and this and that, and all this other stuff. It's fun. It's great, but nothing compares to me to being outside in the sun with my friends, racing on loose dirt, burning nitro. For me, that's where it's at.
Well, for sure.
Do you still have nightmares of tire sauce while you were prepping for that race?
I still get headaches randomly from it.
You get a whiff and it smells like it, and you're, oh man, I'm back in Tacoma.
Don't get me wrong, I had a blast running down there, but the tire game and the sauce and all this stuff, and the atmosphere really just isn't the same. Nothing compares. It's not the same.
Yeah, the atmosphere at the NCT is phenomenal, and people that haven't been to one, they need to go, and they need to realize how much fun people are truly having, and how much excitement there actually is, and when you see that person get their first ever NCT win, how much it means to them, because they're not easy to come by, and I don't care what class it is, and
it's an incredible feeling, yeah.
And well, we're lucky enough this year to where we're going to have novice at each race, and that's going to be awesome to see. The kids, not necessarily kids and adults, try to accomplish something that when they first grabbed an RC car or first grabbed a radio, they never thought they could ever win something, and they're gonna have a good time. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. It's I have won an NCT, but it was in the 40+ class. So. But winning in 8-scale buggy is something that I don't even. It's not even a consideration for me because there's so many fast guys. The competition's so high. Yeah, it's crazy, and just even making the A for me is a win. If I make the A, I'm happy. Whatever happens from there doesn't matter.
That's where I've always been. If I can just make the A in Nitro A or Nitro Buggy, I'm happy. It's I try and fight at the front as much as I can, but that's just not possible a lot of the time. And just making if you can just qualify direct into that top 8, it's an incredible feeling. That's a win each week, and I think that's what makes it cool. The competition is crazy, but it's still so fun.
Yeah, I think in the last 2 years I've made the A 2 or 3 times. I think that's it. Out of how many races is that now? 12 or 14 races. I've made the A 3 times. So I'm hoping to do better this year. I think we have a good package. We're going to be good this year, but it's a big deal just to make the show at an NCT. Whereas you go to some races. And just making the A is not a big deal because that's basically half the field, where we get probably 45 to 50 nitro drivers and the best in the region. So it's a big deal to make the A.
Oh, totally. And then the one thing I wanted to touch on, Brian, you mentioned that novice is going to be at every race this year. And I know that you added a couple of classes, that were, official NCT classes this year that previously had only been, exhibition classes. Novice in particular is the one I'm interested in. What was the driving force between, really pushing to get that back into the series?
The biggest thing is that they're the future of our hobby. and if the NCT, which has gone on for 15 years, wants to continue going on, which there's no signs of it, getting smaller, of course, but we need to keep showing people and show people and not exclude the new people, the people that are just coming into the hobby, the kids of the people that are running the NCT. I personally will be bringing my son David to some of the races later on this year once school lets out, and he's going to have a lot of fun doing that. He got his first ever win at Pasco, so that's where I kind of brought up the emotional side of it. And his hands were in the air when he walked out. That was his first novice win in TQ he's ever had.
I saw that video. It was awesome.
Of course, we were making fun of Walters the whole way through because Walters girls, if they got 2 laps, they got to go to Dairy Queen, and I believe they both went to Dairy Queen as well. So, I mean, just the fun factor of seeing, like I said, everything's about having it be fun. The fun factor of seeing people that, although taking it seriously, aren't taking it to the same seriousness level that the diehard racer is. And they're just getting their feet wet, and they're just trying to figure out how to turn right and left without running into a pipe. When they accomplish those small steps, it's so exciting to see.
By diehard racer, you're not referring to diehard RC. You're referring to diehard hardcore racer.
Hardcore racer. It just so happened I saw a body with a diehard sticker sitting in front of me, so it probably popped subliminally in my head. But yeah,
I just had to clarify that because we have a lot of fun at diehard.
Oh,
yeah, no. That lately.
and being a diehard, like a true racer like that, doesn't take away any of the fun factor. It's just it's a different level. It's a different type of excitement. It's just different, and it's cool to see from every time because that person never forgets the first time they won a novice race. And then they'll never forget the first time they win a stock race, and they'll never forget the first time of any of it. I mean, Colin, you said you've made 3 main events, and you'll never forget the first time you probably sit on a pole or truly put a podium up or to actually take a win. You'll never forget that one.
Right.
When it happens. And notice I said win because it's probably going to happen sooner than later because you're flying.
I don't know. I'm not getting any younger, but if I could manage the podium this year or in the coming years, I would call that a win. So
there you go.
There's some fast dudes, real fast dudes.
Right.
So along the lines of the novice, you're talking about having. Is it going to be a series? They're going to have points and all that, or not?
Yep. Series points, and then trophy in the top 5 at the end of the year, at the end of the season. So they're a full-fledged have fun class.
Okay. Well. I'm going to be the devil's advocate here and go against having points for novice.
Okay.
That, along the lines, you have to move somebody out of novice.
Correct.
Because they've just improved and gotten better, and they don't really belong in novice. And once you start giving points, you can't really do that till the end of the season.
And that topic did come up.
We saw that at Die Hard this year, where there was several drivers that should have been moved out of novice. Novice is for people that are coming in and are very new, and then once they get a handle on things and can get around the track, they're out of novice. That's my thoughts on it. And we saw problems with it at Die Hard with having a point series for novice.
My thing about that has, and I've always pushed this, side of it really hard, and there's never really been the demographic until recently at Die Hard to allow for it, so you couldn't do this everywhere. Right. But if you wanted to, because I think a point series is important still for novice, but you are right, there is definitely a case of, hey, why are you in this class, type of thing, and that's where I've always felt that, a novice in a series factor should have more of an emphasis on the junior racers. So if you have new adults that sometimes people come in, they pick up an RC car for the first time, they enter a novice, and they're dominating, but per status quo, they can keep doing that. and that's kind of been my thing is like, if you still want to promote the sense of, reward and, pursuit of something, that you could do that with the junior racers. And then for the, I don't know if you have like a separate class for the adult novices. We could have done that locally. I know the NCT, that's not feasible. But, for the adults, it changes a little bit, especially if they are rather quick. And that's always kind of been my quote-unquote dream for the younger generation. But
another side of that is how many novice drivers are actually going to go and do all 5 or 6 rounds. You're going to have 1 or 2
correct
do the whole series because their family is doing the whole series, and they're automatically probably going to either win or be top 3 or whatever. So the average person coming in, I guess the points mean nothing.
I feel like that's the case with almost any novice series, though, because even locally at Die Hard, if you really look at the point spread of those classes, really the only ones who did, take home novice at the end of the day were, they were quick, but it was they were a lot more consistent in their participation. Not to take anything away from them, but that's just how the math worked out because it was such a diverse group of people, right. Which is going to happen when you have 40 of them at any given point. But that's kind of, I think, and maybe that's to kind of play into why having that novice series is still a good thing, because I don't think that should be a deterrence, because I think you're going to get that either way. And so even if it really is just a result of the participation, I think the excitement would still be there to get someone involved if they do kind of receive some sort of reward at the end because of their effort.
So let me ask you. Can I ask you a couple questions, Colin? On the bumping out of novice at Die Hard, the guys that you said or the people that you said should have been bumped out, how fast would they have been? Would they have been able to put it into the A main right off the get-go of stock buggy, or would they have been a 17.5? I know there's no stock anymore. Or would they have been a B or a C mainer?
Oh, no. They would have been back of the pack in stock.
Okay.
That's a whole different problem and discussion where I believe there should be a class in between stock and novice that people need to move into, because stock is the most expensive, the most cutthroat class there is, even more so than mod. But moving them out and into stock, there will not be near the top. I don't. There was none that would be near the top that we would have moved out of novice this year. But honestly, putting them into stock isn't the best answer either.
Right.
It's
no longer graduating class.
Right. No, it's not a skill based decision at that point. It's some of the top racers in stock are as or more skilled than some of the guys in mod.
Correct.
The only difference is the winds on the motor, how many turns their motor has. That doesn't have any reflection on their skills. I know there's a bunch of guys at Die Hard that would do exceptionally well in mod. They have the skills, but they prefer to run stock, and that's fine. They can do what they prefer to do, but you move novice drivers up into stock, and I see a lot of them quit and leave because it's really not an environment for somebody that's new to the hobby.
Agreed.
Well, on paper, right, it makes sense. You move out of stock, you move into a quote unquote spec motor class or spec motor performance class, which obviously I think we all we probably share the opinion on what that really means. But the
spec $150 motor,
exactly. But on paper it's like, well, if this would be a good thing to learn, but I feel like you could learn just as much going into mod, and that's where I kind of feel like the novice being a staple point of the NCTs would be a good fit, because you can draw the comparison from if stock is not a graduating class anymore, and if you're moving out of novice indoors, then you have your choice of pretty much any class you want to go to. There's no real stipulation, right? It's what you feel comfortable with, and that's what it always should have been. And so the NCTs have that benefit where you have all of that, but then it's completely expanded because then you have 8 scale, you have all these new 4-wheel drive classes that aren't as popular on the indoor surfaces. So I think that's pretty cool, and that's where that was the one announcement that really made me excited earlier this year when I saw that was going to be a thing, because I think that's such an important move for the hobby and the community. Because you got to get that generation involved, like you said, they're the future, and
right.
Even if you don't see the turnout initially, I would hate to see it canceled to a lack of turnout. Me personally, I'm totally okay with my day being longer to allow for a small novice class to participate, because the long-term effects, they're only positive. I don't care being at the track however much longer that would take. It really wouldn't make a difference to me.
You're right. Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, and getting back to the Collins devil's advocate, 2 points is, the beauty of the NCT, as Travis said, is we can go into a multitude of classes. We don't have stock. We don't have mod. We have 2-wheel drive buggy. Right. So when you hop out, pick your motor. If you can handle a 4 or 5, have at it. Have fun. If you want to be competitive right off the get-go, put a 13.5, a 10.5 in some of these. Put all the boost you want to it, and woo, go have a blast down those straightaways. The competition level on their own, I think, would keep most people out. And if what I've seen in the past on series when it comes to novices, it's simple. If somebody goes to 4 races, they win 4 races, they lock up the series, you kindly ask them to step up. And at that point in time, if the person wants to trophy hunt or whatever they say they want to do, let them do it. Let them have some fun. It's not going to deter away on a novice side from the other guys. It really doesn't. It gives something for people to shoot for. Now, if that person has come into it running novice and is solidly put himself into the main event, or qualify on the podium, is borderline keeping up with Dave Gullickson and 2-wheel modified, then yeah, you would absolutely have to address that.
Yeah,
you would have to have a conversation.
Nobody keeps up with Dave Gullickson.
Right. Exactly. I mean, so, the argument...
He races 3 times a year and kicks everybody's butt. I don't get it.
Right. Yeah, I'm scratching my head sometimes, too, and his car is smooth, his car is fast, it doesn't get sideways anywhere, it just drives away from everybody. But
he's got a lot of talent.
Right. So, it's an interesting question. It's an exciting time, and it's an exciting thing that potentially could have one person may have that breakout. The rest of the class is going to be people that are still having fun, and that person's going to have fun, and then they're going to bump out and have fun again. And we just don't want them to, like you said, move forward and then immediately quit. As far as the stock motor, the 17.5 class, man, what happened to $40 lock timing motors? Yep. That's the way it used to be. Roar should put a dollar limit on how much the motors are, and just be done with it.
Well, they could just make it a claimer rule, like they do in other forums. You can spend whatever you want, but at the end of the day, somebody can buy your motor for $50.
That would be amazing, but do you know how many fist fights would probably happen at the end of that?
Well, only because people haven't experienced what other forms of motorsports consist of.
Right.
Because they do that in other forms of motorsports all the time.
Correct.
And it works. It does work. People are going to get bit initially because they think it's a joke, but once they realize that this is no joke, they're going to think twice about spending that $150 motor.
It'd be a cold day in hell, though, before Roar takes the initiative on something like that and makes it happen. As much as I'd love to see it, but it's that would take a serious changing of the guard. But I think it's necessary. But then I guess the conversation becomes it's not really stock racing anymore. Did it? did it lose its way? Is it just the evolution of that class now, or whatever you want to call it? I mean, it seems to be a not exactly a black and white issue, but
I can tell you where it lost its way. The moment the Paradox was a legal motor, because it used to be completely sealed cans. And the moment that you could tear apart a motor, shim it any way you want, I mean, people were switching armatures. It changed things.
right.
And that stepping stone away from a sealed, canned, completely motor that you really couldn't do a whole lot with. I mean, there were, of course, things that people did, but that you couldn't go to the same extremes. You couldn't pull out the bolts and put titanium bolts in it to make the motor spin faster. There wasn't any of that. You bought a $40 motor, and if it wasn't fast enough anymore, you either bought better batteries or you went over to the stand and you bought another motor from the hobby shop for $40, which helped the hobby shop stay in business, and it helped regulate. I mean, and a slightly faster motor was just that. It was only slightly faster.
Right.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people that I see need to realize that having a motor that's 100 more RPM isn't going to improve their finish at all.
No.
At all. Until they stop crashing.
No.
What's
totally.
I know we're way off topic
more
here,
than anything.
What's is that the motors that Cody's been pushing, Knudsen, the 21.5 deal, are those lock timing, or can you play with those as well?
The Orca motors, no, they're not lock timing. No, they're
Okay.
they're a full-on real.
I think the idea
motor.
is that we're trying to really discourage any kind of tinkering, but we'll see how that goes. But that's the idea.
I would love to see a complete 21.5, because 21.5 when Brussels stuff first came out was a crawler motor, and it's amazing how much faster they are now. But a 21.5 completely locked timing class, but like Colin said, claimer class. I can buy that motor for $50. Sweet, that's less than a screw kit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do what you want to your motor. Spend as much as you want, but just know at the end of the day, somebody can buy your motor for $50.
Yeah.
Or whatever that number is.
Maybe you should talk to Brett and see if Die Hard will do that.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know if a claimer rule would ever really work in RC. I think there'd be too many complainers. Too many people crying.
It all depends on the enforcement. You give people a choice or not. That's what happened with carpet, and now look at everyone. They're all racing it. But
Carpet's so awesome.
Yeah, but not all of us had that opinion in the beginning. So I used to hate it.
It was absolutely horrible at the beginning. Oh my god, I hated it so much. I couldn't get around a lap.
Oh yeah,
but
I had the same problem.
Once you're set up on carpet, there's really nothing like it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Grip is good. Tires are not a problem.
But speaking of indoor, and I want to backtrack quite a few years. So for anyone who doesn't know who you are, Brian, and your kind of history, and potentially some context as to what you can bring to the NCTs. Tell us a little bit about your background in RC and your involvement with the ECTs a long time ago. I know that was just before my time, but I still hear a lot of all the back in the day stories from Keith Hadley and the others. So
who?
Right? So who just tell us a little bit about that and who are you?
Well, my name is Brian Phillips. I started racing at Tacoma RC Raceway and touring car of all things with a street weapon, which was
those things. How do they handle the jumps?
They handle the jumps. So speaking of novices, I actually tested that quite a bit because they did have a pretty good front bulkhead at first before they came out with the 0 degree bulkhead, and they would jump pretty good, lane to lane.
I had no idea they ran on road at TRCR.
The old TRCR was pretty cool when it was on 6th Ave. It had a bigger clay track on one side of the building than what the current TRCR is, and then on the opposite with pit lane with permanent pits in between. On the opposite side was started off as a I think what they did was they took the smooth asphalt that was on there, the smooth ground, and they put in like concrete sealant, like blacktop sealant, so it was like an asphalt outdoor track inside.
Oh wow.
It was really cool. And then once the carpet thing came around, and everybody had to have Ozite, so Scott got Ozite, and we ran carpet for a while, and we had a blast. Then I started running off-road. That's where I met Tori Hadley, Keith Hadley, and John Sterling, Bridgewater, all of those guys. And so that's where I started racing, and then started getting involved with and started running the outdoor stuff with Mike Dana when he started the NCT way back when. And then after a season and a half of that, it was just, we need something during the wintertime. And that's when I started and couldn't think of a better name for it, but the ECT, the Electric Championship Tour, and started off, I believe, just at 3 tracks, 2 visits, which was Tacoma, 4 Seasons, and at the time, A-Main Hobbies.
Down in Vancouver.
The old A-Main, yes, down in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And then we grew to the new A-Main, added Mike's RC World at one time in Bellingham, had Bremerton RC Raceway, which that was another red clay slick track that was phenomenal and had some pretty cool characteristics to it. Like, for example, you pitted over the top of the sweeper. So the sweeper was underneath some sections. It's pretty interesting, pretty cool to do. And then we went down to Portland RC Raceway and when
PRCR.
Yeah, and when the Dunlaps had that track.
Yep, the Dunlaps.
So all one-day events, AAA mains, 2 rounds of qualifying, double bumps in each class, so we had to get through all the lower mains before we even started the AAA mains. And I believe our peak was 212 for an entry count for a one-day event.
Damn,
and we used to do double headers at Tacoma, so it was, I believe the peak was at Mike's. We had our biggest turnout at Mike's, but we used to be like 175, 180, 2 days back-to-back at Tacoma. And it was, I'll tell you what, Sunday morning was a tiring day, and I'm reminded every once in a while that I'm not 23 anymore. Because I used to be able to do that without batting an eyelash. I'd still go out for beers afterwards. And
do you know how many entries they had at the NIS at Tacoma today or this weekend?
Rumor I heard, what, 183?
183.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That is pretty good. I was wondering how that was going to turn out with that J-Con race down south. Apparently it didn't matter.
Exactly. They had 141 or something like that at the J-Con race, and then 183 at Tacoma. Unbelievable.
Wow. A lot of RC racing.
RC is alive and well in the Northwest. Yeah.
So I took about a 10-year break, and unfortunately, and if anybody, fortunately, Hal Hudson bugged me enough to come and announce this year's Hank Perry, and here I am back full force and 2/8 scales and 4 mods and ET 410s, and yeah, I'm back in with both feet and three short courses, one for me, one for my kid, and one for my daughter.
You also announced at Burlington this year.
I did. Burlington was a blast. I was kindly told to not have a whole lot of personality at Spokane and just kind of make sure that I heard a rumor one race went too long, so the whole goal was just get it done. And so I was kind of armstrong a little bit, and but Burlington I had a blast at. That was so much fun. I even heard a rumor I got too much into an 8 scale main event, and may have not told somebody who was in 3rd during the 8 scale A, but I don't know who that would have been. and he may have pulled over for 4th place, thinking that he was getting lapped. But I blame that guy's pit guy.
I do too, but now I have a headset, so I'm good for this.
So the true fun stories come out, and that wasn't in 40 plus. So No,
that was actually in Nitro. That was a podium. Yeah. My first podium was if I could have hung on, but.
Yeah, but you pulled over. You're like, here, have the spot.
I had no idea. I had no expectations that I'd be anywhere near that close to the front, so I was just kind of cruising,
With Burlington's expansion, it's going to be awesome that the track's going to be bigger, but I doubt I will ever be able to say Kyle Johnson on a 103-lap pace ever again.
God.
Right.
And that's I believe where it started was 103, so
Yeah, what were we doing? 17-second laps or something last year?
High 17s, I believe.
Yeah.
Low 18s in 4 mod for Jesse and Jackson.
Yeah, that was it was a bit of a smaller track, but this layout that they had Joey come up and do it again, was more open and flowing in a small section of and it was fast. The lap times were fast. So, but it was a great layout. It really was fun, regardless of the lap times. It was a lot of fun.
Yep. So that's it. So I got back into it and talked with Randy for a while and talked to the board, and here we are. We're gonna have some fun this year and take the traveling circus around the Northwest.
No, that's awesome.
What made you want to do to steer the NCT ship this year?
Probably the easiest would be nostalgia. So the NCT was derived and thought of between Mike, Darren, and Spokane, and but it truly came to fruition at a roundtable pizza in Auburn with me, Mike Dana, and Tori and Keith Hadley. So being around that series from day one, I just wanted to see it continue to do what it's done over the last 5 years and continue to grow and take upon the foundation that's already been set, and just keep working on it and keep slowly massaging it. And really, it's nostalgia, and I want to bring RC, make it. It was fun for me, and I wanted to see how many more people I can make it fun for.
It's been a ton of fun the last couple of years. I'm going to put you on the spot right now and say,
Uh-oh.
what happened? What happened last year?
What?
Where did Mike came back and he was gung ho? What happened?
Probably a conversation over beers off the air.
Fair enough.
If that's the most political way to say something like that?
We don't have to be politically correct on here, but I guess your friendship's probably worth more than spilling something on here, I guess. But
I have lots of friendships, and it involves a few of the friends, and I'd rather not.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. I got an opportunity.
I was excited to have Mike back last year, and I like Mike a lot, and I was excited to have him back, and then all of a sudden he disappeared, and I was pretty sad about it. So I was just trying to learn what happened, So
we're working on getting him back into an RC car. I'm working on 2 people pretty hardcore. Well, 3 actually, but 2 of them the hardest, and that's Mike and Keith.
Keith. I'd love to have Keith back too.
Sat there, had a nice long conversation with him at up in Canada. Man, he's primed and ready to go. I think you'll see him back.
Keith was up at the barn race?
Yeah, hanging out.
Oh, he's in. He's in. Come on back, Keith.
Yeah,
we need you back.
So, and I've offered him he can run any of my cars that I've got, any of my techno stuff, anything he wants.
There you go.
Until he gets his stuff back. So hopefully we get.
I was just gonna say, seeing him, knowing Keith, just seeing Tessman dominate everyone was probably enough to light the fire for him. He was never one to shy away from anything. So I know that he was probably itching out there, just wanting to try. So
maybe even he's a super competitive kid, always has been.
Oh yeah.
I remember when he was 6 or 7 and he put people 2 laps down in novice and crashed too many, or not novice in stock. And he'd crash a couple times and come off the stand crying because he didn't think he did well enough. So, I've known him since he was extremely small, and he's an extremely competitive person. And much like you did, Colin, getting ready for the Reedy race, when he got ready for his first juniors national championship, and I believe it was in Ohio, at I think it's CRCRC, they ran a ton of laps through those cars. And he
probably ended up with a better finish than I did, though.
I think he finished number 1, so I didn't see you on the winner's circle, that podium down there. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
I was just outside the winner's circle in 75th.
Yeah, I don't know if he finished. I don't know if he finished first that year or if that was the year Tori won, and he might have gotten second. I don't remember, but and they went back to stock nats quite a few times, and we're always near the top.
Yeah, it's funny since I came back to 8 scale 3 or 4 years ago. I hadn't seen Keith Hadley since 2000 and 2001, somewhere around there. At I think the only NCTs that we ever did, which I didn't even realize were NCTs, was the bumper pool, track. Wenatchee. We came down a couple times from Canada. A bunch of us came down and did that race. And I remember hearing about Keith Hadley and Tori Hadley and all those people. And now being down here and actually racing with them and stuff is really cool. And Keith's super cool to hang out with, and it'd be awesome to have him back.
01.
01, yeah. Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah, I remember Keith and Mike Phillips tied one year for the NCT championship, and I think the tiebreaker ended up going to Mike Phillips, but that would have been Keith's first. And I don't know if Mike got one or two of them, but that's another guy I missed. That guy was awesome to watch race.
Last weekend we went out to JNS to practice. Do you know who was out there and joined us?
I've heard a rumor of possibly Mike and Regan.
Mike. I haven't seen Regan. I tried to get Regan out. I've been trying to get Regan out for a year and got him all set up with the car and everything, and he still hasn't made it out yet. But we're trying. We're trying to get both of them out. Mike came out and practiced on Saturday or Sunday last weekend, and we're still working on Regan. We got to get him out.
You building that 40+ class up for us right away, huh?
Yeah. We got to get all the old school fast guys come out and have some fun, because that's what we do in 40+.
That's once again same platform as Novice. The reason for bringing it on is, and these are just a bunch of good guys wanting to have fun. Let them have their class.
Yep, the laughing and the joking on the stand is second to none. That's what makes it completely. It doesn't matter where you finish. It's just the joking, the jokes about the walkers and the crutches and canes and nap time and stuff like that in 40+. And a lot of you don't see it because you're not on the driver's stand, while the rest of us are all jabbing each other up on the stand about, it's nap time or you got to go change your depends and this kind of stuff. So it's just a lot of fun, and that's why we love it.
I've never understood the hysteria with 40+, why so many people are against it. In the beginning, I wasn't much of an advocate for it, but the argument I always seem to hear is that, the track time's not fair, and I've just never seen it matter. So I don't understand why people, dig on the class so much, and since you're a participant, maybe you can shine some light on it, but I don't get, why not have it a class, because it's a class everywhere. And it doesn't seem to benefit anyone in any particular sense other than just having more fun.
Right. I think that's just it, though. It's the extra track time. Well, I only run the 2 classes, and if there is no 40+, I only run 1 class. So I'm at a disadvantage already.
Right.
And a lot of these guys run Truggy or E-Buggy plus the Nitro Buggy, so they're getting the track time anyway.
Even another 10 scale, it makes a difference.
Yeah, whatever class. They're getting the track time. I'll sit there, if there's no 40+ class, I'll sit there for 4 or 5 hours between runs. And I am at a huge disadvantage at that point. So running 40+, yeah, I get more track time. I don't have as much time sitting around drinking beers, getting drunk. But maybe that's the advantage, is I'm not getting as drunk because I'm driving more.
Fair enough.
But, I'm on the track twice with the same car, so I can see how it would be perceived as an advantage, but all these other guys are running more than 1 class anyway as well. So I don't see it as an advantage, and I'm as fast as I'm ever going to be. I'm not going to be any faster than I am now, so I don't think any of these guys have anything to worry about anyway.
Well, fair enough.
And that was the best argument I'd actually heard in favor of 40 plus, and quote me if I believe Austin was the one who said it when we were discussing all this at the end of last year. Was and he posted online. He's like, I don't care who you are. You know, it's my job to go out and try to beat you.
Right.
And so, you know, guys like the argument has always been there's one person that it's targeted towards, and that's Monty Houston. I mean, we can admit that.
Right.
You know, that's where he's the one that is consistent. I mean, nothing against you, Colin, or Randy Sides, or anybody else that have their weekends. You know, you just said yourself, in the last 2 years, you've made 3 main events, and I guarantee you, at all 3 of those main events you've made, Monty Houston's on the stand. Because he's on the stand at most of the A-mains.
Actually, 2 of them were at Burlington, which I don't think he was at.
He was not at yes, you were correct. He was not there last year. Sorry. So I stand corrected.
Yeah. Burlington's my home track, so of course I'm going to do a little better there. But
why dispel a whole class because one guy who's fast in the standard class is fast in the 40 plus as well? You know, that's kind of been my thing. Is like, you're gonna, you know, I throw some numbers out, you know, out towards me if you can. You know, how many entries on average was 40 plus getting last year? I wasn't part of it, so I wouldn't know.
8 to 10.
Okay, so even then.
Really?
So let's say
I
it's
think
8
it
to
was
10.
more than that.
You think it was more than that?
Anytime we had a 40 plus, it was a B main.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go.
Well, even if it was only 8 to 10, why deny those 8 to 10 racers, you know, the opportunity to have that when, you know, if they're concerned about one guy? You know, why make that adjustment? Because then it's the same thing. Well, then, you know, why have E-Truggy or anything like that? Which, you know, maybe that's the argument people seem to make. But, you know, what's wrong with those two? Like, that's kind of what I wanted to segue into asking you was, you know, you added a lot of classes to the official build this year.
2 classes.
Well, yeah, more than we're used to seeing, I guess, right?
Well, we added 3 if you include novice.
Right. So novice, E-Truggy, and 40 plus. So 40 plus, you had a consistent turnout for, so, you know, you might as well add it. Novice, it's an effort to grow the hobby. Just to kind of encompass everything, I don't want to leave the E-Truggy guys out. Why add E-Truggy?
Well, I mean, E-Truggy. Well, there's a few good answers to this, and the funniest one is Jason Walters bet me $5 I couldn't get it passed. So if you ever hear me say this class has already made me $5, it's because. And the moment it passed, Walters is at the meeting, and he walks over to me and hands me $5, and he has the vote on the $5 bill. I mean, it was a joke, but it was still funny. And I
That's
wasn't
awesome.
expecting him to actually pay up. But yeah, no, there may have been beer involved in that discussion. Looking the previous year's numbers, like if you look around at the races that had them, were pretty decent numbers as far as turnout go, and the argument against having it was purely time. But you take into the Hank Perry, we got done plenty early. They had Gas Truck and Novice, and Gas Truck took way longer than E-Truggy will.
Oh my god!
And I love Gas Truck, so I don't want Hal coming at me, you know, chasing me down in slow motion while wearing a Hawaiian T-shirt, because you know he single-handedly, I think, owns every Gas Truck in the Northwest. They just have different bodies on it.
Bring it back. We want to see a C and a D main in Gas Truck at every round.
Travis doesn't sound enthused, but
no. Gas Truck is where good drivers came from.
This is fair. That I'll take the stand against you on this, is that I haven't been around long enough to care. So I have that going for me, but that's, you know, there is a cool nostalgia factor there, but I never got to race it, but that's always been my thing. I think it's a cool class, no reason to not have it, you know, when the people come up to do it, even if it's only a couple, but damn, it takes a long time. So if you're going to have it, you might as well have the other classes, you know.
Every time they've had Gas Truck that I've seen in the last 2 years, there has been at least a full B main.
Really?
It has been a totally legit class when the guys all want to get together and bring their gas trucks out.
I think the Hank last year had 16 or 17 of them, and they ran all of them on the main event. They ran them all at one time during the main event. And we at the...
I was pitting for half of them.
Yes. So you're pitting for Hal, is what you're saying. You had half the cars up there.
Yeah, half of Hal's cars.
I think we had 16 of them at the Winter Age.
It was probably about the same at the Holiday Hangover.
I don't think we ran them at the Hangover at all.
The Fallout.
We're talking about the Fallout. I don't know. I don't know the numbers for the Fallout. I don't think he had that many gas trucks show up for that one, and I think that's the reason why it wasn't on the bill at the Hangover, because I know there were people asking for it at the Hangover. So
okay.
But anyways, getting back on topic of e-truggy, most truggy guys, e-truggy, they go 7 minutes, 777s, and we can have them in and out in the same time span as a gas truck. There's a want for it. The Boise, Idaho group, I mean, they get B mains at club races for them.
Well, hell, I want one now.
Right.
Yeah. Truggy and then e-truggy. You're out in Idaho. That's what you get out there. It's hillbilly.
Oh,
hillbilly
great.
racing.
I think it's in the rules. They have to have KC lights on the back, and a wrap.
Oh, funny.
Truck balls. They need the truck balls hanging off the back.
Atta girl. So
I'm just kidding. I'm not a big fan of the class, but if people want to race it, more power to them.
Well, I mean, there's people that aren't a fan of buggies, that just don't like buggies. One of my best friends hates buggies. Absolutely hates them. No, he's doing okay coming back to Tacoma. He just loves truck. That's what he loves. He loves trucks. And there are definitely people out there that love trucks and want to run truggy and want to run e-truggy. Same as people that are going to want to run e-buggy and nitro buggy. That's just what they like. They like the smaller nimble, or they like the big tires. And the downside to e-truggy is, I don't know how you race those clean. I really don't.
The pipes are merely a suggestion.
Right. Sometimes it's like bumper bowling, yes. but more on top of how do they run themselves clean. I mean, their tires are so big and so easy to come into contact with each other that
they're still overpowered.
Right. So, when you're driving one, somebody's got to understand that somebody might accidentally nudge you, and they're not taking you out. It's just these things
are a big car. Yeah.
I mean, when I had the numbers, the stencils made, I can't remember how wide I sent Tyson at Fusion Graphics, but he's like, seriously, they need to be this wide? I'm like, truggies. He's like, oh, yeah, it makes sense.
And that, I think, I guess maybe to solve the cleanliness factor, because I always hear that too, is that it turns on the stupid in people is the thing I keep hearing. But
I don't think it does that.
I don't think it does either. And I used to race e-truggy almost exclusively back when I kind of started, but. I think but e-truggy at J&S when it was popular, we had a B main in e-truggy for a while, and the racing in it was awesome, and that's because it wasn't so much that the track was conducive for it, it's because the guys who were racing e-truggy, it was an exact copy and paste of the fast guys from e-buggy, so it was easy for everyone to maneuver the cars because this wasn't their first rodeo with them, and I think what it'd be cool to see it happen with e-truggy is I'd like to see like a real group of some really fast guys dive into that class, because I think that would help grow it.
Right,
and then I think you would start to see that cleanliness factor dissipate a little bit with that racing. I would hope, but that's a. I would like to see that happen instead of everyone just kind of hating on it.
I'm going to be curious on that class on when you talk about fast guys getting into it, how the points are going to shake up. Because is it going to start out with one guy being a fairly new class, and somebody else looks at it and goes, I want to build one of those, and then all of a sudden somebody else is getting in there. I mean, I've seen Walters wheel one, and he is really, really good with one, and it's going to be very hard to beat. And so is Cole Collins.
I'll put my money on Sorjonen.
Oh yeah, Rob is ridiculous with one.
Yep, he's fast with the e-truggy.
Yeah, I don't care who builds one. He'll be up there. He'll be with them. So
yeah,
I'll order one tomorrow.
There you go.
But I on the last podcast I learned that you're not allowed to race anymore. So
pretty much,
is it going to be Is it going to be a shelf queen or?
That's what all of them are right now, and probably until May. Yeah, pretty unfortunate.
If you build one, you got to shotgun a beer before you drive it every time.
I can do that in Walla Walla. We'll do it then. Then
Mandatory trucker
then
hats.
legally I can execute.
Oh,
but yes.
you turn 21 right before Walla Walla.
In July sometime. I'm assuming the race is after that. It usually is. But yeah.
I was gonna say you're assuming when your birthday is. Okay.
Well, I haven't looked at the dates for any of it yet, but usually it always falls before.
It's different every year. I don't know when my birthday is going to land this year.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
But yeah. So no, I'm really itching to get a track, onto the track soon. Nitro showed up on Friday. Nitro Fuel finally showed up, so it'll happen. Make the return.
Nitro Fuel has a life expectancy on it, so you got to use it up.
Yeah, I know. That's why I had to buy it, because my last batch expired.
That doesn't give a vote of confidence.
Yeah. No, I know. Me neither, but I'm working on it.
Are you telling me the Blue Thunder that I have for my T-Max isn't going to still work?
It'll probably work in a T-Max.
I actually, believe it or not, have a brand new, never been ran T-Max that I got my dad for Christmas years and years ago, and he set it up on his refrigerator and thought it looked cool.
Oh my God!
Never ran it.
T-Max was my first nitro vehicle. Believe it or not.
Oh, there you go.
And it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah, well, usually takes one. That gets back to that novice class. Somebody gets a taste for one. The thing that's going to curtail somebody, and I ran into this last year with the Bartletts, and it was a great conversation with him as his kids running novice in one class and 4 mod in the other, and I'm like, you can't do that. You can't run novice and 4 mod.
Right.
That's the other thing that we saw at Die Hard this year, where halfway through the season, we saw some of these novice drivers want to run other classes as well. And for me, that's a big no-no as well.
Yeah, no, it's not a no-no. No, that's what it's supposed to be, Colin. You just can't run novice anymore. You're out of novice if you want to run 2 classes.
That I agree with that totally, but they were allowed to run novice and another class.
Well, we won't. That's not going to happen.
I think per my conversation with Brett last week, I think that's being dispelled next year, but don't quote me. But I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I believe Brett's going to, with the resurrection or the huge novice presence that they had this year, they're going to make some changes for the outdoor season, which will carry over to the indoor season next year as well, which means probably no more points for novice, and they're going to have the 21.5 class.
Yeah, definitely.
For people to move up to, which at a place, a race that has 150 to 190 entries, you can do that. You can have a class. But I understand at most places that they don't get those kind of numbers, and it's hard to have start creating classes for a handful of people.
Speaking of changes next year, something that he's been in favor of has been going to heads-up qualifying. So I want to use this to ask you, Brian, what are your thoughts on heads-up qualifying, and do you think that there would ever be a time in the foreseeable NCT future where, if, depending on what your answer is for the first part of the question, do you ever think it would be implemented?
Well, the answer, okay, go to the format of the Winter Age. We were heads up. Right. So that ought to answer my personal opinion of racing. It's heads up racing. To me, it does not make the day go by faster. So let's dispel that theory right away. It actually takes longer because you get the nitro guys have to come in for fuel. Inevitably, one of them will flame out. So you either have to do one of two things as the race director. You either have to be a jerk during qualifying and be like, sorry, that's why you have 2 more. Or you give somebody a minute to restart up because it's heads up starts, right? So that aspect of it on a logistical standpoint, I love it. I like it, but it doesn't make the day go by any faster. It actually takes a hair longer. The advantages to heads up starts are there's quite a few of them in my opinion, and try to debunk me if you want. The Sunday main events on races that are heads up during qualifying, yeah, the first round of qualifying sucks. Everybody's hitting each other. They're taking each other out because they're not used to it. But that's the way the mains are on Sunday of a race where you're not doing heads up starts. So you're not getting into the groove of things. When years ago, when Tacoma started doing 100% heads up starts, because it used to be Tuesday and when it was in 6th Ave, it was Tuesday and Friday were heads up starts. Sunday was IFMAR and 3 rounds of qualifying. So it was like you get a little bit of both, and eventually it went to 100% heads up starts. We all got better. We all raced better. We all learned how to follow, and that learning how to follow thing falls back into the how do you drive things cleaner and how's etiquette. You need to practice it. Etiquette. 99% of the people don't know how to take each other out. They just accidentally do it. It's not on purpose at all.
True story.
And in most cases, the person taking out the other person is the person in the front. So learning that if somebody's passing you if they're on the inside of you and their front tires are ahead of your rear quarter panel, you've been passed. Yep. Just give it up and tuck in behind them. But what most people do is they freak out. They close the door on them. Their rear tire bounces off the front tire of the guy trying to pass them. And then that person who closed the door is yelling at the person who tried to make a clean pass.
Right.
So from a racing standpoint, a driving standpoint, heads-ups are awesome. Will you see it in the NCT? I couldn't tell you. I don't. That's a crystal ball thing. I don't know.
Are you pushing to have it at NCTs?
I did not this year. I'll tell you that.
Are you looking forward to trying to push that in the future?
We'll see how it goes. Is maybe it's primarily a club racing thing, but I am seeing more and more national races. I think Zach Rogers was just at a race where he posted all kinds of praise about an awesome race with these people, and it was all heads-up starts, and qualifying was awesome. It was a heads-up starts and qualifying. I think it gets fundamentally, if we want to just focus on the fun factor, it gets people racing more instead of just running their own clock and on their own time. That aspect of it is another big plus, is you're actually racing. But then it goes into the timing. Do you want to use race points, which is what we did, which is a borderline version of the Reedy race format. You qualify based on where you finish in your group, and that's it. So you get points based on your finish. If you get third, you get third place points. It doesn't matter what happens in the heat next to you. It only matters in what the heat you do that you're in now, and then they base that off the main event. Or do you continue to do qual points? That variable makes a difference. But heads up starts, they're fun. I'll tell you what, in the first round of qualifying, if you start 12th, they're not as fun as if you start first.
This is fair.
I think we spend way too much time qualifying. Way too much time. It's a complete waste of time. It proves basically nothing. Let's have one round of qualifying and then 2 or 3 mains. Serious.
Colin and I have talked multiple times about this. I threw this post out there, after talking to Taylor up at the barn, and Taylor's like, "Why aren't we doing triple 10s or triple 12s or triple 15s of these races?" Which we've done. The first Burlington 2-day race, the first West Side Showdown, right? I think that's what it's called. It was a AAA main race, and we actually finished the third main because it got dark and they had no lights, and the only thing that had lights was the oval track. I'm not kidding. We finished the third main event on the oval track.
Right.
And I'm sure
we've talked about this several times, and we've done it, a couple times up at Burlington, where we've had one round of qualifying, and then you have 2 complete rounds of mains following that. And this is for a club race, and I don't see why it couldn't be adapted to a big 3-day race either. But one round of qualifying. So let's say you have a terrible qualifying race. You're in the C main or whatever. So for when the mains come around, you're in the C main, you start, you win it, you bump up to the B. You go on, you win the B, you bump up to the A, you get to run the A. So once all the mains are done, you go and you start the mains all over again, exactly the same as the first time. So if you qualified in the C for the first round, you start in the C for the second round as well. So you have all these chances to bump up. And it's there's way more racing. It's way more fun. These spending a whole day or 2 days qualifying is such a waste of time. It's pointless. It's the same guys at the front. It doesn't matter. It's crazy. We spend so much time. We spend way more time qualifying than we do actually racing. If you make it into the A, you have a 30-minute A on Sunday at the end of the day. You're doing nothing all day Sunday. It just doesn't make much sense. It's not much fun. Qualifying is boring, really, especially for somebody who's just watching.
IFMAR is definitely boring. IFMAR style is definitely boring. That's always been my biggest criticism of it, is that I've always liked the heads up, because people not racing, I think, have an opportunity to care more. And I appreciate the traditional format of, a practice Friday, your couple rounds of qualifying on Saturday, and you're racing on Sunday. I appreciate that for a series, but I would like to see more, at least these single standalone events, and I hope we do a lot at Burlington this year. But I would like to see more of the heavier emphasis on mains, because I think the big thing is, you just gotta get people racing more, and that's the big thing about the heads up. Why I've always been such an advocate for it is because you become a better racer, and I am just so goddamn tired of racing the clock. It's so dumb.
So to be honest with you, here's the argument against him: is these other races have come up and come and gone. I think the Mapston a few years back was. If you won your main event or got top 3 in your qualifier, you were in the main event. Like, it was motocross style, and then you could be done if you wanted, or you could run a practice heat. They've done these formats, and they just don't stick. So when you're looking from a series side of things, you're looking for what's going to work for the majority of the people, because you got to think, we're trying to draw from Canada, we're trying to draw from Oregon, which unfortunately doesn't have a whole lot of RT tracks right now.
Right.
We're trying to draw from Idaho, which has a beautiful new facility. So we're trying to drive from the Boise, Idaho area. We're trying to draw from Western Washington, Eastern Washington, the Palouse guys. We're trying to get them all.
I can't wait to go to Palouse this year. It's going to be fun. The track was fresh last year, but it's going to be even better this year. It's going to be fun.
I've heard nothing but yeehaw from how big it is.
It's big.
Yeah. And so, logistically, a huge format change, I don't see. I could be wrong. Next year we could be coming to you announcing that the NCT has the complete new format. Everything is different, which I honestly think everybody's so afraid of change wouldn't happen overnight. It would be small changes tweaks that progress to, like, for example, we're seeding qualifying this year by doing one round of seeded practice Friday night at 4 o'clock. So you will be in one set heat this year, and we'll be able to then take that first round of qualifying, instead of being just a survive. Now we're going to, based off your 3 fastest, 3 consecutive laps, you should be paired up fairly good with who you're going to race against. Now maybe we can turn that into a heads-up format down the road, but it takes small transitional steps in order to get to anything.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
That leads me into another question about doing a seeding round on Friday afternoon or Friday evening. Is that something that you've looked into?
We're doing that.
Oh, you are doing it?
Yeah, that's what we are doing that. We're doing that at 4 o'clock. Each race has a seeded round at 4 o'clock. So signups we're going to be done with signups about 3:15, 3:30. Print out the heat sheets, and the first couple races will probably be have some bumps in the road. We did that at the Winter Rage. We had no bumps. The bumps in the road. The difference I saw was people started practicing at 10 in the morning, 9 in the morning, where it's usually like 5 or 6 people on the driver's stand.
Yeah.
The driver's stand were consistently full because people were getting in their practice time early because they knew they needed to be ready to be on the clock. And don't quote me on this. I have my notes someplace on this. I believe that we're doing a 7-minute session total. So 7 minutes from the time the clock starts for your group to the time you're done to the time that's the time for the next group to start. So during that time period, you can start at 3 minutes into it if you want. And all you need to do is lay down your 3 laps. So let's say if you lay down 3 fast laps and you want to pull your car off and go enjoy a beer or go out to dinner with your friends or anything like that, you can do that.
So you're saying
but you got to corner the next race.
We've got 7 minutes of actual track time?
As much time during that time span as you want. The clock starts and the clock ends.
See,
but you got to be out.
That's one thing that I've had a bit of an issue with is the 5-minute practice sessions trying to get a fuel run in.
Right.
To judge. So if we have a 7-minute session, we can get a good judgment of fuel run.
I don't want to hear about that, Colin, because at Burlington I set up the practice sessions for 10 minutes and just got complained about that they were too long, and that was from racers and 8 scale racers and everything saying, no, we don't want them this long. But that includes your transition time to get onto the track. But please don't quote me on that 100%. I'll look into that and verify and send you a message. But yeah, I mean, we can set them up longer. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't, especially for the nitro guys that want to get run time.
Right. Doing a 5-minute run, you might get 4.5 minutes of run time in a 5-minute practice session. So it's very hard to judge, your fuel mileage on a 4.5 minute run.
I do believe they sell tools for that, and I think I know somebody I'm talking to that has a hobby shop that could buy one of those tools that'll tell you how much fuel you have left.
I just want to run more.
I fully understand.
Oh man. So, what kind of things do you want to change in the future for next year? Not this year, for next year. What are you going to try to implement?
I know I'm going to sound like like we're beating a drum here, but I need to sit back and watch for a year. And okay. I mean, I got a very small sample size. I took over the series going into Yakima, left most everything alone, asked a bunch of questions of people over the wintertime, and via Facebook, via in person, watched a ton of racing. The subtle changes I'd like to see, I'd like to figure out how to get the 8 scale buggy guys out earlier, buggy and truck guys, because when you sit back and watch in the pits, and I'm a 10 scale guy, so don't get me wrong, I'm a 10 scale guy through and through. I'm watching these 8 scale guys at the barn at 10 o'clock at night starting to tear down their complete cars.
Yep.
And if we could, and I'm watching the 10 scale guys with a 2-wheel drive modified buggy, talking, having a beer, they pick up their car, they blow it off with some air, and they set it in their bag. Right. Perhaps those guys should run a little bit later on in the day. Something like that. Little subtle format changes like that, and that can be done with just race order.
I like that thinking, but I also feel like at an NCT, the 8 scale buggy should be the highlight. I feel it's the highlight of the whole program and should be, built up to at the end of the day kind of thing as well. But
Sunday.
I like the way you're thinking about, giving us time to work on our stuff before
on Sunday, but not on Saturday. Saturday, okay. I think we could work a way to get them a little bit earlier in the day to where you could tear down your car. I mean,
right.
And I won't name any names, but I watched one person who was busy helping somebody else have an issue with his front diff that he could have caught had he had more time, had his not ran at 10 o'clock at night, and which for the record, to get done with 400 entries, I think they were at 398 was the final entry count by 10:30 at night was phenomenal. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it was 30 heats like clockwork.
That leads me into what are you predicting for entry numbers for the first round of the NCTs this year? Pasco.
Well, that's going to be a tough one to tell. It depends on how many people just go to Silver State and don't go to Pasco.
Right.
So that's a variable we haven't really had to deal with before, and I would be shocked if we're below 260, and wouldn't be surprised if we were above 350. I mean that's kind of my thought process.
And is there a point you're mentioning over 350? Is there a point where you're going to consider limiting entries?
I don't think so at this point in time. I mean
350 plus is doable.
I think once we get to that point, we need to manage the entries as far as get people to sign up earlier, because most people don't sign up until 30% sign up the day of the event. Don't take advantage of the discount for signing up early.
Right.
And at that point in time, if we get to where we need to limit to 30 heats, then we would need to fill accordingly.
Yeah.
There's an obligation for each race to make this fun, and part of the fun factor is the community of getting out and having dinner with your friends.
That's where I'm going with this. It's oftentimes we're there until I would say on average 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, on Saturday.
Yeah, on average. I always try to get out early on Friday. I skip my, I run 2 or 3 practice sessions and I'm out. I'm done. I want to go out and eat and hang out, and so I skip a bunch of practice. But I really don't care because it's more for me about getting out and hanging out with friends and drinking more beer and that kind of thing. And so I skip out early Friday, but Saturday, I think the average is about 9, 10 o'clock.
Which I think is, I think 9 o'clock is a good goal. I don't remember what time we got out of Burlington. All I know is that was part of the reason why I started racing again, is because I started racing Woody's car. We were done early enough to where people were still hanging out and wrenching and having a good time. And that was right around 256, 260, right around there for a range, which is a completely a really, really good number to hit for a quality event. The Hank, we were done at like 8:35, 8:40, and we were, just under 300 entries there. So it's doable.
So anytime I've seen 350-ish, it's been late nights.
Correct.
Is why I'm bringing this up and seeing if there will ever be a limit, because I have a feeling this year is going to be big like it was 2 years ago. I think it's going to be bigger than it was last year.
That would be awesome. That would be phenomenal.
With the people I've talked to and the amount of people building new outdoor cars for this summer, I really feel like numbers are going to explode. And if it's not kept under control, it's going to turn into really late nights, and people won't come back, unfortunately.
The magic number is 430, because that's 30 heats.
Oh my god. Okay.
And that's a doable time. But once again, you can balance things out in the way that I had one person emailing me asking me, what about doing, where one round, and I know this would be hard to do, but it'd be a little complicated, but you start off with an order where, say, round 1 starts with 2-wheel, and then round 2 starts, so let's say you have 30 heats. Round 1 starts with heat 1, round 2 starts with heat 11, round 3 starts with heat 21, so everybody, and just kind of move things around where everybody can get, it rotates who ends up being there the latest, so not everybody's there late.
Right.
Then again, the other argument is, I've never heard anybody complain about racing at the 24-hour races. I didn't see much complaining about the Cyclo Nitro Blast. People were racing at 2:30 in the morning.
No, it's true.
So
people have a good time there.
Right. So that's where it falls back to what's the first thing I wanted to bring to this is let's have some fun again. And
right.
I mean, I didn't hear any complaints at the barn at 10:30. We had fun. Everybody was having fun. We were centrally pitted together. There was no tent cities. People were razzing each other. They may have been, sharing some sort of adult beverages with each other. And
they also had Tim Hortons and poutine. How can you be unhappy when you have Tim Hortons and poutine?
I've still never had poutine, and apparently it was pretty good at the track.
I had poutine yesterday, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah. Here down in Vancouver, I had poutine yesterday.
The best part of Tim Hortons I've ever seen is I got a cup of coffee at Mission at one of the drag races one time, and there's a Tim Hortons across the street from there.
Yep, and been there many times.
I'm a fairly sarcastic personality and think everything in life is funny, very similar to like a Tosh. And on the cup it said, "We don't need to put warnings that the coffee's hot in Canada. We know."
Yep.
That was on the cup. I'm like, as an American,
Yep.
I appreciate this.
Yep. No, I've seen that many times. I used to live. I'm obviously Canadian. I grew up in Canada, so yeah, that's kind of been a big joke. As soon as that one person sued, I think they sued McDonald's about it.
Sued and won.
About the coffee being so hot. Yeah.
It's not the fact that they sued; it's that they won.
It's they won. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone in Canada is like, "What the fuck? How stupid do you have to be?"
You won the first F-bomb.
Yeah, it happens. There you go. Travis, are you still with us?
Oh yeah. Taking it in. Oh, no,
oh, great. Sorry if I'm too much of a conversationalist.
No, that's perfect. No problem.
So this past weekend, we had 2 big races here in the Northwest. 2 electric indoor races, one on carpet, one on clay. We've had, between the 2 races, there was 325 entries. 2 big races, 2 3-day races going on at the same time in the region, and total they had 325 entries.
That's awesome. That's crazy. I think that's the nice part is that the one down in Oregon was still pretty much comprised of locals. So
yeah, it was a glorified club race, honestly.
Oh yeah.
They flew in some of the pros, like a handful, 3 or 4 pros, whatever. But other than that, it was a big club race. That's kind of how it goes. But still, I think they had 141 entries or something like that. And then the NIS at Tacoma had 183. Which completely blew my mind. I think that's the most they've had all season, if I remember correctly.
It's awesome.
But especially with that big race that I know, some of their regulars went down to the carpet race. So to have 183 entries was pretty awesome.
So I'll go ahead and I'll poke the bear now. We talked a little bit in previous episodes about the whole spec tire thing. What happened? What happened down in Oregon regarding their spec tire situation? Since you were the inside scoop here, so we'll hear from you.
Yeah, I got news that on Friday, at least one person, and I've spoken to this person to verify the story, that they showed up on Friday to sign up to race for the weekend. And they were out of tires.
Brutal.
Out of spec tires. At a race that's sponsored by the tire company.
That's kind of one of the things I was kind of wondering about. That was like, is that supposed to be a case like I think J Concepts helped Northwest out at all as far as getting them tires, or did they just not have enough or anticipate entry count?
It's 141. It's pretty easy to.
Then that shouldn't have been. Yeah.
For that.
So that's where I'm kind of wondering, like, that's a stab at the spec tire thing, because I don't see the point of it. And then what if that? I don't know if what was he a local, or did he travel?
No, he was a local. He was one of the local guys. I think he was from Portland actually, and traveled down about I think it's an hour and 15 down to Albany. Showed up and there was no rear tires for him.
See, and that's still a bummer, right? Like that would suck, especially whether it be from there, if someone came from up here, go down there and like, oh, thanks for coming. We don't have tires for you though.
Yeah.
I would that's shocking. Just because if it's a JCon race, JCons should have. I mean, I wouldn't fault the hobby shop for that. I would have assumed that if it's a spec-tired race for a spec-tired event, and this is me purely assumption and my head exploding right now with the thought process of that J Concepts would have sent them 2 extra boxes and said, ship it back to us for whatever you don't use. We've got an inventory of this. You don't have to pay for this. This is your overflow.
Right.
Or at least the drivers that were sponsored by them have multiple sets of tires that they would be willing to walk over and hand over them. I mean, that's what a sponsor driver should do, is be like, hey, I've got 3 extra sets.
For my previous spec tire experience on carpet, they probably went into the trash. You know, there was the trash can was right next to him, and then they threw him straight into him. Is usually what I'd seen.
Is that at the end of the race?
Oh, that was after every run. When I went down to a spec tire event down there, and that was just because they could, and that was what they were doing, to be fast. They put a new set of tires on every race. Cavalieri and Rivkin and Evans. And those tires were just straight to the garbage.
Yep. No, I guarantee. See, this is the biggest problem for me. Luckily, there was other local racers that gave up some of their tires to allow this racer to race. But I guarantee that the top pros that were flown in had more than enough tires. They weren't told they didn't have enough tires for them. It was the local guys that got screwed and didn't have enough tires.
Well, so here's my thing. So when I went down to their invite race in the end of 2016, you got 2 sets of spec tires. That was also a J-Con race. You got 2 sets of spec tires, and then that was still the tire you had to use. But because of the whole, quote unquote, losing their edge thing, we had to go buy a new set every run. So Did he have to just buy all of his tires in that case? Like, he got no comp sets? Like, if he did not, get the donations from the other racers, like, did they run out of, like, a designated stash? Like, that's what the part, like, confuses me, because, like, people are still going to have to go out and buy those, so how could he possibly not been comped a set? That's just that's what's crazy about the whole thing to me, right? Like, that's what I'm sitting here wondering, like, how does that happen?
I could almost understand it if they had 300 racers show up and they're only expecting 150.
Right.
Something like that. But when you only have 141 racers and you're out of tires before, on Friday, during practice day, you're out of tires already. Who screwed up? Who made that mistake and didn't order enough tires?
Well, can I ask one question, Colin? What race have you ever gone to, though, and playing fully devil's advocate here, where you haven't been prepared for your tires before you got to the event?
I've been to lots, but I've never been to a spec tire race where you have to buy the tires at the track.
Oh, you had to buy them there. You couldn't buy them in advance.
Correct.
Yeah, because they had to.
Oh, never mind then.
Yeah.
Never mind then. That's gone. I don't know the particulars of this race and how the rules are. If you have to buy them at the track, and you should be able to buy tires Sunday morning.
That was the thing. That was the thing, is that the track, how I remember it was, and maybe they've changed it now, but how I remember it was, you bought it from the hobby shop, which is cool, but you have to buy it from the hobby shop because they had to inspect the tire and then put their sticker of quality control on it, and then it came back to you. And so long as those had the sticker, and stayed within their guidelines, the tire was legal. So you couldn't modify the tires in any way or anything like that. I caught quite a bit of flack from some people who thought I was modifying them when I was trying to modify them for 4-wheel, which wasn't a spec. So it was a big deal that was the big piece they're trying to enforce, is that these tires had to be as equal as humanly possible.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know if enough tires weren't ordered or if J-Con screwed up and didn't send enough. I have no idea whose responsibility that was.
And I hate to, I feel like, Casey's had enough events down there, that I don't feel like it's a case where they weren't prepared. Northwest Hobbies is an awesome facility. Casey does a great job of running that place. I can see it coming down to just, maybe there's some miscommunication somewhere, but it was just, what a strange thing to hear. But that's the thing, is like, well, what would have been different about that race? Like, what would have changed besides the J-Concept sponsorship of the event, I guess, about it being, what would have changed race-wise if it wasn't a spec tire? Results probably would have been the same,
How many other J-Con races, they do all their clay series every year, and that's not a spec tire.
Right.
Why is it a spec tire on the carpet series?
I mean, they just, if I remember correctly, considerably smaller entry-wise. But
it's smaller than their clay series.
Maybe if they,
but it's still growing. You would think in order to grow the series, Open it up more. It leaves anybody who doesn't run a J-Con tire at a huge disadvantage. And I'll be honest, that is the number one reason why I did not go race this weekend. Because I'm going to show up Friday with zero experience on J-Con tires, and I'm going to spend a fortune on tires trying to get them to work. And, all that practice time on Friday, it just wasn't worth it for me to drive 6 hours down there, or 5 hours, whatever it is, spend all day trying to get my car set up around J-Con tires and throwing tires at it all weekend, and I'm still at a disadvantage.
Right.
The spec tires, to try to even the playing field, well, it did the exact opposite. It did the exact opposite this weekend, where people that don't run J-Con tires are at a huge disadvantage.
So I've never looked at spec tires as being something that even the playing field out. I've always looked at it as a cost control measure. And not using that example, but using the NCT as an example, an outdoor race where you could maybe spec buckshots, whole shots, something like that on a pretty regular basis on 5 out of the 6 tracks they would work at.
Sure.
It becomes a cost saving. And
okay.
Allow people to modify them and stuff like that, so you don't have to bring boxes and boxes of tires.
I completely see your side of it, Brian, but on carpet with the J-Con tires, from what I've seen, they're replacing them every 1 to 2 runs.
So that's not a cost savings.
Yeah, I spent a lot of money on tires that weekend.
Especially if you need to spend all day Friday, run after run after run, to get your car set up around a different tire than you're used to.
Right. Then perhaps
it's not a cost savings. It's not.
Well, I'm meaning that would be the only reason why I would ever really push for it. I mean, picking a tires sometimes is one of the coolest things you can do, because you can figure out your setup's decent, and then all of a sudden you figured out this magic tire that works, and your setup goes from being decent to phenomenal.
Right, and that's all part of it. Tires are part of it's a huge part of racing, but especially with a series like this that is in its infancy and trying to grow, open it up, allow people to come out and race that are comfortable on what they're running. Don't try to shut them off and force them to run something they're not comfortable running.
Or make a spec class. Make one class that, if you want to push the spec tires and people like them, make a portion of it be, not every class. Make open and spec or stock. Goes back to the regulated motors too.
Right, and I'm not even bagging on the tires themselves. I don't even know, but I do know they're different than what I normally run. Every tire is different. So in order to get your car set up, you're going to spend a lot of time on the track, which means burning up tires, which means costing more money. Regardless if it's Raw Speed or if it's J-Con or if it's whatever tire brand it is. If you're not used to that tire, you're going to spend a lot more time on track, which means you're burning up more tires, which is not saving you any money.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. That's where I'm frustrated with this whole spec tire thing. And it's not like if they had run a spec tire at all the J-Con series races everywhere else, and this was a spec tire for the carpet series because that's what they do, fine. But they don't. It's open at every other J-Con race. It's just the carpet series that they have, for some reason, specified a spec tire. And this has nothing to do with Casey or Northwest Hobbies. This comes directly from J-Con. They're the ones who set up the series. So I don't understand why they've done that. It makes no sense to me.
You get a lot of people asking about spec tire for the NCT brand. I see it on posts every now and again.
Yes and no. It's once again one of those answers that doesn't say anything. I get a fair share that say yes and a fair share that say no. typically when I hear, man, it would be really nice to have spec tires when somebody's gluing up their 7th set of tires for the weekend, trying to find something that'll work. That magic tire when when they see trying to keep up with the Taylor Wanderers or the Keith Hadleys of the worlds or the Jason Hunts and Carson Phipps, those guys, trying to keep up with those guys when in all reality half the time those guys throw hole shots on the car and go.
Yep.
And they're not chasing this thing. Huh?
Those guys are going to be fast on whatever they run on.
Right. So that aspect of it, no. If I were to push for a spec tire, which I had a lot of conversation about it over the winter, I would push for it as some sort of a factor. I'm still looking for a factor to make a difference between Sportsman and e-buggy. That would be the class where we'd start it with if we were to do anything. Because there needs to be some sort of delineation between the two classes. Because right now, it's if you're a chassis.
The delineation needs to be.
What's that?
Sportsman e-buggy needs to be 2S.
I would agree with that, 2 or 3. But then again, right. I mean, Techno tried. They had lights, and actually, I was talking to some people outside of Bakersfield, I believe, in California. That's all they get. They can't get an e-buggy turnout. All they run is lights. They run 2S. Wow. Yep, 2S 4-pole Pro 4 motors.
Yep, that's what it should be for Sportsman. Let's look at it this way. You're handing the fastest, heaviest, most powerful vehicles that we have to people in the Sportsman class.
Correct.
What other form of racing can you hop into the F1 and just drive it? None. Zero.
None.
Zero.
So that conversation, the argument against that is the same argument that, from what I've been told, next year Roar is going to allow 8-scale setups in short course, in the 4-wheel drive short course classes. So you're going to have 4S.
Even faster?
So the argument is they're not faster. They're just torquier because they limit them to a smaller KV motor and they rev lower than doing a 4-pole Pro 4 motor, which I believe is legal now with a 2S. Those RPM way more than an 8-scale setup. But
they're going to limit the turns or the KV, I guess, on the motors then.
Correct. So they have a lower RPM. And they're torquier, so they'll be able to clear that quad way easier. But the biggest thing about those lights cars, those cars are so heavy, the 2S Pro 4 setup is hard on electronics.
Yeah.
And there's a balance. I was thinking 3S. And because that's a little less motor and then limited into 1800 kV motor on Sportsman or spec motor in it. You have to run the Tekin blah 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 motor. If Tekin wanted to sponsor it, or if it was Macklin, or if it was Orca, or anything like that, and then spec tire the class as well. Here's the delineation. Here's the variation between this and the open class.
There needs to be some separation there to slow them down because we're not teaching our Sportsman drivers, the skills they need to for the most part because the cars are so freaking fast.
There is the case too, though, is that a lot of some people, you ask them, they don't want to. They're content. They'll be there for as long as they're in the hobby, and especially if you look outside of the region, you look at like SoCal that gets a C main in any Sportsman run they go to, along with the other 4 different skill level classes they have. It's the same kind of thing where I agree that there needs to be what's the separation. But there's going to be people who are just, that's where they're going to be, and they're happy with that. And there's not a whole lot that you can mandate to get them out of it. But
well, we've mandated 17.5 motors in stock. We can mandate whatever we want in any class.
Right, and that's very true. I mean, it's funny with the Sportsman deal last year at Burlington. There's a guy who came up to me, and I watched him practice, who's running pretty good. And he goes, I'm signing up for Sportsman e-buggy. And I looked at him and said, why? And he's like, I don't think that, I want to run Sportsman. Well, there's 40 Sportsman e-buggies. He's back in the C. His runs in Sportsman in the C, had he had a cleaner run, and just from getting hit, would have put him probably, because there's like 12 e-buggies or 15, would have been close to making the A. And he came up to me later and was like, I should have signed up for e-buggy. Cleaner driving, better chance of making the A. You know, there's, and that's no dig on the Sportsman guys, but if you just sit there in Sportsman and don't push yourself to get any faster, like you talked about with being content, Travis, you don't get better.
Yeah.
But there has to be some sort of separation in the long run. And what it is, I don't know. I mean, it's not as simple as throwing a 2S to it, because then you're going to be killing electronics.
Yeah.
And that opens a whole new can of worms.
Short course four-wheel drive at its peak was absolutely horrendous. Great for people who needed to buy new companies who, you know, were getting their electronics bought. But yeah, you would churn through stuff. It was crazy. Nothing was built to handle it. And I feel like you would have the same issue if you went to like a light setup. Because like I said, it's just such a gnarly pull on them. Like I said, they're just not built for it. I don't think it's not natural.
I can totally respect that, and I'll take that back. But there needs to be something, a motor limit, like a 1500 kV or something, maybe. I don't know, but the
speed controllers need a blinky mode for them.
Well, most people don't run any boost anyway, and they're still overpowered. It's ridiculous.
No, meaning that there needs to be a Sportsman mode in there where they can turn down the RPM, you know, to where it manually goes, where full throttle is 75% or 80% throttle.
That would be cool. Yeah, I think that would be a game changer for Sportsman, because then I would worry about people who. I would worry that if you had the case where you went to like a 2S setup or anything like that, or made any drastic changes as far as the rules go, that you would either see people just stop racing that class or move into expert e-buggy, or which maybe that's the goal all along. I don't know, but
that's not a bad thing.
it isn't. But then you get to a certain point where I feel like you'd see more people just ditch the class than embrace it. And then I don't know if it's really then I feel like you'd have the conversation after that where you're wondering like, well, should we just go back to what we had? Is, you know, a Sportsman necessary anymore? Because now it's just one big class, and you get, you know, 10 to 12 people who actually change their electronics. I don't know. I don't know if it would. I feel like if companies were to, you know, and maybe this is we're kind of reaching a little bit, but if there were a case where companies were to invest in that kind of, you know, just click on their software where, you know, it does kind of do that, like that limited spec mode or whatever you want to call it, that would be awesome.
They could program anything they want into that software.
Oh yeah, you know, it's simple, but if you made the demand for it, you know, I think that would be where, if you were going to make a rule change for Sportsman, if that ever comes about, that would be it. But unfortunately, that's not what we have, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think we should have to graduate into the faster, more powerful classes. That would be my ultimate goal, to have a graduated style, you know, licensing, so to speak, to move into the faster, more powerful cars. Because I see a lot of people out there marshalling at some races, and it's scary as shit.
It can be, definitely.
There's people out there that probably shouldn't be marshalling, and then there's people that are driving that shouldn't be driving what they're driving at the same time, and it scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, that's with any form of sports, or any motorsport, though.
Oh man, I mean, yeah, but what other form of motorsports doesn't have a graduated licensing system?
Yeah,
well, that's true.
But also, how many constituents of that organization absolutely despise the organization it races for?
I've heard rumors that you don't like Roar.
They may or may not be true. But yes, not a fan.
There you go.
Oh man, but see, that's where it comes from. You look at the drag race. You can't drop into a top fuel dragster.
Well, listen, no, you have to take your licensing runs.
Exactly, there's licensing requirements.
But in order to take your licensing runs, you jump into the car and do it. and then your peers sign off. So that's the difference is your peers. Right. So we would have to sign off on. You'd have to get 3 drivers to go. Okay, I'm fast enough now to run e-buggy.
Okay,
that doesn't even sound that bad, actually.
No, let's go out to the track and start signing off on people that should be running Pro E-Buggy and Nitro Buggy and Mod Buggy and this kind of stuff, and then we'll see where it all lands.
Well, there you go. That's a spreadsheet for you to do. I'm not interested in doing that spreadsheet right now.
Which is fair.
You don't want to get bloody on this one.
Not that I don't want to be bloody this year, man. No. I've been bloodied before and not wanting to go down that road ever again.
You're giving us the impression that you want to do this a little bit long term in terms of you realize that not every like you say you're looking at this year and you kind of want it to be a year where you observe, you make it fun again, but you also really you really observe and take note of what you're seeing. And then implement stuff in the future, or maybe dispel some things you might be thinking about now. So that's what I'm kind of getting from you is that you want to do this for a bit. This is not going to be a one and done deal. So
I didn't take this on as a placeholder for the next. It's not just a placeholder for the future. I mean, right. This is I'm having a blast getting ready for the series. It's exciting to me. I've had so much fun. But you're right. I observe. I sit back and watch and see what I can learn from every race I've gone to this year and last year. I've learned something from somebody, and whether it's something that I haven't done or taking something that they're doing and try to tweak it just a little tiny bit. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's go back a little bit.
And,
it's...
Yeah. And that's where I was kind of concerned, wondering, for the period where we were kind of wondering, who was going to take up the mantle for the year and everything, because that was my worry was that someone was going to come in and make panic changes and, try and reinvent the wheel through this perception that they need to right the ship that seems to, that I don't think anyone has that perception now, but there was a little bit for a while where people were kind of wondering, like, what's going to happen with this? And
I wasn't worried because I had been talking to Brian and I knew what was going on.
Which is fair, but I suppose throughout last summer I was not in that position, right? So I sat there and I wondered for a while, like, hey, what's next? And same kind of thing later on where you and I kind of talked, Brian, but that was where I was kind of that was my concern for anyone who's going to come into it is that I didn't what were they going to do, and so I'm glad that it's being taken with this long-term approach that you really want to focus on do it right, and that you want to make it fun, and that's the most important thing, and I think that was a perspective I was afraid was not going to reveal itself coming into this year. So I'm really glad that that's the stance you're taking.
Oh, and that's 100% the stance. I've seen and not necessarily in RC, but in other things where we've all had a boss or a manager that's come in, and one manager gets fired, and the new manager comes in and just sets the world on fire.
Oh,
and
it's God.
Just
yeah.
That is no fun.
You're saying the last manager got fired? Oh, you got to tell us the juice on this one.
Oh, Jesus. At my work?
No.
Talking about work.
We're talking about NCTs, brother.
Oh. Yeah, no, the last manager decided to race motorcycles. Let's go there. We'll just say that.
Can't blame him entirely. I miss it.
I hope he heals up and gets to race motorcycles again soon.
We tried to convince him to go to the barn, and we said the only way he could break a collarbone there is if somebody hits him while he's quarter marshaling, and we'd make sure that didn't happen because we'd just say you were injured and didn't want you quarter marshaling anyways.
Yeah, don't let him marshal the sportsman classes.
But getting back on the fun note on the new topics, Colin, how awesome will 40 plus be if we can get you, Nate Clark back out running?
Nate Clark's coming. He built his car. He's coming.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah,
he's coming.
That's
he's got a car.
Confirmed at this point. I think he's planning on making most of them.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. Nate's awesome.
If you could get Mike Phillips out there running again, possibly You got Monty, Randy. I'm coming soon. As far as that's the reason why I actually got an 8 scale, was so I can run 40 plus next year and have a blast doing it, because you guys were having more fun than anybody else.
Yep.
And there were jokes that, and I feel sorry for calling out the guy, but he was the most vocal person on earth about it, that we were going to establish the age limit for 40 plus to be 1 year older than Jason Hunt from here on out. And that was proposed by a Spokane guy. So, you guys can all guess who that is, but just trying to have some fun with him a little tiny bit, and realize that, man, there's a lot of good racers that are in that 40 plus that can make that class just be phenomenal, and just be, Marcus is 40 plus, and
man, I
probably
love
a thorn
Marcus.
in your side.
No, I love Marcus.
I meant
I
as
love
far as
hanging out.
being fast.
He is extremely fast. He's extremely fast, and I actually beat him. I beat him at Holiday Hangover.
Well, you were on
excited.
In 40 plus, you were on a different lap than everybody else. So you figured it out and were hauling. That's all I can say. I just kept pulling over.
I figured out something and when it came to tires. It's what it was. It was the tires.
Oh, so you're saying we should have spec tired 40 plus, and that would have never happened?
As soon as I figured out the tire situation, I had a qualifier. My third qualifier, I was fourth overall behind Drake.
Woo!
Yeah, and then I made the mistake of not changing up my tires for when the grip came up in the main. But
man, yeah,
it's okay.
My four mod in that last main at Moses was unreal. I wish we could run one more on that dirt. It was so grippy.
It was so good. The third qualifier was about perfect. The main was over the top grippy. I was not expecting the grip to be where it was during the main, and it cost me about halfway through. I was out of tires. But that was fun. I beat Marcus, and that's probably the highlight of my year so far, because Marcus is awesome.
Oh, he's phenomenal. Yeah, so 40 plus, that's just, everything on the classes we added was just about to have fun. And for anybody, let me throw this out there, anybody who's worried about how long the day's going to go, we looked back, most of the races, with the exception of a couple, ran all these classes anyways last year. So
yeah,
you already experienced it, and
I'm not worried about the number of classes, I'm worried about the number of entries. If it gets up over 350, it gets to be a long day. Well,
but you just pack the heats more. That's all you do.
Yeah.
And you still, instead of having some 8 and 9 car heats, you have more 12 car heats in qualifying. And that's the answer. And the good news,
the one round of qualifying we're going to run, right?
No, I don't. My phone just cut out. What'd you say, Colin? I didn't hear that.
The one round of qualifying.
That one round that you're pushing for in 35 main events, so you can keep racing. From what I've learned from this phone conversation, is that Colin shouldn't just run qualifying once, go to about the 4-minute mark, pull his car off, because he wants to be bump boy the next day, so he can race more on Sunday.
Hey, I'm going to have my shit together. I don't need more than one qual.
There you go. Even though it's qual points, best 2 out of 3, he's still going to do it on one qual.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. We have qual points, but that's
more problems.
That's a problem. That means I have to hang around. I can't drink as much beer.
No, you're just mellowing yourself out to have a better main, a better qualifier.
My magic number is 3 beers.
There you go. That's when you're the fastest.
Yeah, anything more than that, and it's a fucking shit show.
That'd be good. Well, and then yes, we're at the just over the hour 50 mark. Unless we had anything, was there anything, Brian, that you wanted to kind of plug or shill for us, or anything you wanted to definitely throw in there, make sure everyone hears?
I just want to say thanks for having me on. I was nervous about this, and this has been an absolute blast, and hopefully we can do some shorter race reports after the races, coming up. I would love to do something along those lines. I'm looking forward to this year. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm hoping that we can bring back, like you said, some of the older racers that haven't raced in a while, and that's what the point of 40 Plus is. If that brings Nate Clark back, that's awesome. Get him
Nate's
back
coming
out
back.
racing.
Nate, baby, he's coming back.
So I don't think 40 Plus is going to be, one of those classes that's going to be a gimme. E-Truggy's definitely not by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I got to warn you, I've raced with Nate over the winter at TRCR, and he is no slouch.
I've raced with Nate before, too, and he is fast.
Yeah.
Dude is seriously fast. But he's always
Fast.
smiling, and he's always positive, and he's just an awesome dude. I can't wait to have him out.
No, that's what I remember from him as well, and he's definitely one of the good ones.
Yeah.
If we could get some more of the good ones back, and racing in the Northwest, it'll make things better. It'll make things more fun. And I don't think even if the races go till 10 o'clock at night, if everybody's having a blast, it doesn't matter. They're having fun.
We need a beer garden. Can we have a beer garden?
Might be a facilities issue at that point. But
Yeah.
I've seen beer gardens just about everywhere. Why can't we have a beer garden?
I don't know. Let's do it. Tony? Let's have it at Burlington. Get with Tony and see if they can get it approved by the city, and let's go for it.
yeah, that would be the trick step for sure.
I will work on it.
Worth the ask. Worst case, they say no. But
I believe getting a liquor license is pretty difficult for serving alcohol, so I don't know.
yeah.
Oh,
Definitely.
I've seen some sketchy places with liquor licenses, so it can't be that hard.
I don't know. I've never tried, so I'm not going to speak upon that.
We'll take a look and see. But yeah, no, I think we're looking to definitely, obviously, expand this platform. I'm hoping that we have actually a pretty decent presence at the NCTs, as far as some on at the event content, and that's where we definitely like to get with you again, and even partway through the year, once the NCTs have really kicked off and are in mid-season form, I think I speak for Colin and myself, we'd love to have you on again.
We would love to have Travis at a race sometime. I got to get Travis out.
I heard at one point in time he was wicked fast with a 4 mod. He even has a championship or something, but
one and
He
done,
still
man.
kicks my ass with the 8 scale too. So
That's I think I passed my peak a long time ago, so we'll see what happens when I get behind it again.
just wait. Just keep knowing that I'm going to be here for a while, and 40 plus is just around the corner for you.
Perfect.
Another 19 years to go.
Hell yeah.
19 years.
Oh, I'm ready.
There you go.
The clock, please.
That by then it will be 60 plus.
Right? Yeah, I know.
Oh, all right.
Probably the
Perfect.
same group of guys as hopefully not if Novice takes off the way we're looking, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and by the way, speaking of novice, I'd like to thank Diehard is sponsoring that class this year. So
Awesome.
Diehard RC
I did not know that.
is sponsoring the novice class.
Why am I not surprised?
I asked him what class he wanted to sponsor this year, and that was probably the quickest response I've ever gotten back from him, and it was novice. Sweet.
Yep.
That is killer.
That is
Absolutely.
so awesome.
So do we want to tell them what we're doing, Colin? Do we want to announce that here, or just have it be a surprise at Pasco?
Oh no, you can tell them.
Okay,
Let's do it. Let's announce it right now.
The Mr. Speed Freaks over here, Colin Branch and I have gotten together, and we hope it works out. Logistically, it looks like it'll be a lot of fun. We're going to have a radar gun on the straightaway. A permanent one with a reader board out there, and it's going to, so you can see physically in real time how fast these cars are going down what will be officially called the Speed Freaks RC
It's
straightaway.
about time. I cannot wait
Speed
to
Freaks
have the
Speed
answer.
Zone.
Finally.
That'll be the speed zone, but the straightaways.
Man. That is killer.
So it's ordered. It should be here any day. Waiting for that to come. So
That's awesome.
I'm excited about that.
That's going to be a ton of fun. Like I said, everything that we're doing is trying to bring the fun factor back to it. And I wanted to say one thing to the Wars boys up there. Man, they did a phenomenal job. going to that race, the barn, and I apologize because if you guys weren't around for the NCT when it started out, the fun factor difference in being around, being gone for 8 years is those guys. I have never seen so many people pull off. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like 1/4-inch wide lug, knobby tires off their stuff to put on racing stuff on the exact same car without changing setups, and they just had a blast. And I sat back and like, that's how the NCT was when we started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's the fun factor that's missing. And I know that might sound really goofy and really weird, but it was a different group of guys. It wasn't the attitude of, I don't belong here. They all thought they belonged there, and they do. And I think some people
Everybody belongs.
Exactly. And I think sometimes some people think that they don't belong at the NCT, and they come and watch, or they're not that level of a driver. And
Everybody belongs, but they should have a place that feels like home.
right, and I think we haven't brought that warmth and fuzziness back.
Right.
And
there needs to be a home for every racer that wants to race with us.
So I challenge the fast guys, as I'm saying in quotations right now. When you see somebody who needs help, walk over to them and help them. Point out some things to them. Make them warm and inviting. The worst thing you're going to do is make a friend. That's it.
Yep.
And they're going to come back and they're going to run the NCT and they're going to have a blast. And then they're going to start club racing with you guys again. And it's only because they're going to feel warm and they're going to feel invited and they're going to feel like they belong. And that's what we need to bring.
Oh, definitely.
Exactly.
I'm really looking forward to that this year. I'm really hoping I can make a few of them. I'm really excited to see where all of this goes for sure.
Travis, who's your boss? Who do I need to talk to?
I just changed jobs, so to complicate things even further. So now Silver State's not even happening. But
Oh my God.
yeah. So
We'll have to talk about this later.
yeah. No. Long story short, I should be at Burlington's track opening in 2 weeks or whenever that is, and then I should pretty much be club racing from then on out. I probably won't make an NCT though until June that's the reasonable assumption, but we'll see.
So no Columbia and no Hank.
No, I don't have the time off for Pasco or an engine broken. Otherwise, I'd go. I'm working out to see if the Hank is doable right now. Which that's just something I have to look at financially to see if that would make sense, or if I just want a club race to start the year out. I'm trying to really warm myself back into it because I don't want to burn myself out again.
Right. Well, I'll break your motor in for you if you need it, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, sure, but no, appreciate it. But yeah, so and obviously one more time, thanks a ton for coming on, Brian.
Yeah, no problem.
I know we had been talking about doing something like this for months, but it's nice to finally do it. I'm super stoked to have you on and to hear everything you have to say, and just sitting here hearing everything, it gets me really excited from a standpoint where I wasn't really sure if I was going to make really wanted to make more than 1 or 2 NCTs. I'm really hoping to make as many of them as possible now, so I'm hoping that a lot of people get that same feeling.
Good.
Well, I honestly didn't learn anything. I knew where Brian stood. So,
I like beer. That's where I stand.
yeah, and that's not new to me. I knew that.
Oh, that's awesome. But
No, Colin was one of my first calls when I took it because I saw that he was pretty vocal, and he and I talked. Well, I called him. We talked quite a bit about this and about where he sees. I don't agree with 100% of it, but I agree with 90% of it.
yeah,
And so I'm sure he doesn't agree with 100% of what I come up with, but we're on the same page.
right.
We're on the same page for sure.
So.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll go ahead and wrap up then while we're here.
Okay.
So thank you everyone once again for listening to the 3rd episode of Track Rock RC Podcast. As always, new episodes every Monday. We didn't do listener questions this time because we didn't have any. And I'll try and get the thread posted up on time this week. But every Wednesday, come check out our listeners thread on the Track Walk page.
And if you're not seeing the page, because I've heard that a couple times, Facebook has really goofy page algorithm as far as views go. And it's all based off your engagement. So you might have to go kind of out of your way. I'm trying to work out some advertising for it, but just engage with the page as much as possible. You'll start seeing it more. And check out our questions thread every Wednesday on the page. Tell us who you want to have on. Tell us what you thought of the episode. And every Monday, and I'm hoping to get us on some other platforms. I'm still waiting on iTunes review, and I'm working on formatting for YouTube, because when I tried to upload episodes last week, it was 30 gigs per episode, so I'm doing something wrong there. But that being said, thanks again, everyone, for coming, and we're going to see you guys next week. Go out, make as many NCTs as possible. The series is in awesome hands with Brian, and I'm really excited to see where he takes it. And we're about bringing the fun back, and that's what we're all here to do, and that's why we do it in the first place. So thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you next week.
RC's kicking ass in the Northwest.
All righty, bye guys.
All righty, thanks guys.